Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the most fascinating moments in history. Today, we're journeying back to ancient Rome to uncover the dramatic and brutal final moments of one of history's most towering figures, Gaius Julius Caesar. His name is synonymous with Roman power, ambition, and genius. But his end was as shocking as his rise was meteoric. So, who was Julius Caesar? He wasn't just a general. He was a political mastermind, a brilliant orator, and a man who reshaped the Roman world. Born into a prestigious but not particularly wealthy patrician family, Caesar's ambition was evident from a young age. He climbed the political ladder, the cursus honorum, with a mix of charisma, strategic alliances, and sheer audacity. His military campaigns, especially the conquest of Gaul, are legendary. He didn't just win battles. He documented them in his commentaries on the Gallic War, a masterpiece of political propaganda that cemented his image as an unbeatable hero back in Rome. But as Caesar's power and popularity grew, so did the fear and resentment among the Roman elite. The Roman Republic was built on the idea of shared power, a system designed to prevent any one man from becoming a king. To the traditionalist senators, Caesar's ambition looked dangerously like a desire for absolute monarchy. He broke laws, defied the Senate, and built a personal army fiercely loyal to him, not to the state. The breaking point came in 49 BC, when he famously crossed the Rubicon River with his legion, an act of open rebellion that plunged the Republic into a bloody civil war. Caesar emerged victorious, chasing his rival Pompey the Great to Egypt and defeating the last of the senatorial opposition. By 44 BC, he was the undisputed master of Rome. The Senate showered him with honors, eventually declaring him Dictator, perpetuo Dictator, for life. For many, this was the final nail in the coffin of the Republic. The title itself was a direct contradiction to everything the Republic stood for. Caesar was now, in all but name, a king. This is where our main story begins. In the tense and paranoid atmosphere of Rome in early 44 BC, a conspiracy was brewing in the shadowy halls of the Senate. The conspirators weren't just Caesar's enemies. They were his peers, his colleagues, and in some cases, his friends. They called themselves the liberatories, or the liberators, believing they were acting to save the Republic from tyranny. They saw themselves as patriots, following in the footsteps of their ancestors who had overthrown the last Roman king centuries before. The group was surprisingly large, numbering over 60 senators. The two most famous leaders were Gaius Cassius Longinus, a brilliant but bitter general who held a personal grudge against Caesar, and Marcus Junius Brutus. The involvement of Brutus was the most shocking of all. Brutus's mother had been Caesar's longtime mistress, and Caesar had treated Brutus almost like a son. He had pardoned Brutus after the Civil War, promoted him, and placed immense trust in him. For Brutus, the decision to join the conspiracy was a torturous one, a deep conflict between his personal loyalty to Caesar and what he believed was his civic duty to the Republic. He was convinced that killing his friend was the only way to restore freedom to Rome. The chosen day was the Ides of March, March 15, 44 BC. The date was significant, a day for settling debts. The conspirators planned to strike during a Senate meeting, a public place where Caesar would be unarmed and his bodyguards would be waiting outside. The setting itself was symbolic. The Theatre of Pompey, a building commissioned by Caesar's former rival. On that fateful morning, the omens were not good. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, had a terrible nightmare, dreaming she held his murdered body in her arms. She begged him not to go to the Senate. A soothsayer had also warned Caesar weeks before to beware the Ides of March. Caesar, who was often dismissive of such superstitions but also feeling unwell that day, was initially inclined to stay home. He sent a message to the Senate that he would not be attending. This threw the conspirators into a panic. Their plan was falling apart. One of the conspirators, Decimus Brutus, a trusted inner circle friend of Caesar, was dispatched to Caesar's home. Decimus cleverly persuaded Caesar, playing on his pride. He mocked the idea of the great Caesar being swayed by a woman's dream and bad omens. He warned that if Caesar didn't appear, the senators might think he was insulting them. Shamed into action, Caesar changed his mind and decided to go. It was a fatal decision. On his way to the Senate, another person tried to warn him, handing him a scroll detailing the entire plot, but in the bustling crowd, Caesar simply handed it to an attendant to read later. its life-saving message unread. As Caesar entered the portico of the theater of Pompey and took his seat, the conspirators surrounded him. One senator, Julius Caesar, approached him under the pretense of presenting a petition to pardon his exiled brother. This was the signal. As Caesar knelt and grabbed Caesar's toga, pulling it from his shoulders, the other conspirators drew their daggers, which they had hidden in their tunics. The first blow was struck by a senator named Casca, who lunged from behind, aiming for the neck but only managing to graze Caesar's shoulder. Caesar, surprised, spun around. Ancient sources say he cried out in Latin, "Vile Casca, what is this you do?" and stabbed Casca in the arm with the stylus, a sharp writing instrument. For a moment, the 55-year-old general fought back with the ferocity he was known for on the battlefield, but he was hopelessly outnumbered. What followed was a frenzy of violence. The senators, some driven by political ideology, others by personal hatred, descended upon him. They stabbed him indiscriminately, a chaotic and brutal attack. In the mayhem, some of the assassins even wounded each other by accident. Caesar was trapped, surrounded by a wall of flashing steel and grim-faced colleagues. He tried to cover his head with his toga, stumbling and staggering under the relentless assault. And then came the most legendary and heartbreaking moment of the assassination. Through the sea of attackers, Caesar saw a familiar face. The man he had mentored and loved like a son, Marcus Junius Brutus. Seeing Brutus among his assassins, with a dagger in his hand, seemed to break Caesar's will to fight. According to the historian Suetonius, Caesar's last words, uttered in Greek, the language of the educated elite, were "kai su tenant," which translates to "you too, child," or "you too, my son." This poignant question has echoed through history, famously adapted by Shakespeare as the Latin et tu, Brut, ennio, Brutus. After that final, soul-crushing betrayal, Caesar collapsed. He fell at the foot of a statue of his great rival Pompey the Great, ironically bathing his enemy's monument in his own blood. The autopsy, one of the earliest recorded in history, later revealed he had been stabbed a total of 23 times. However, the physician concluded that only one of the wounds, a deep thrust to the chest, had actually been fatal. The other 22 were a testament to the collective fury of his assassins. The liberators believed the people of Rome would hail them as heroes. They rushed out into the forum, holding their bloody daggers aloft, proclaiming that liberty had been restored. But they were met not with cheers, but with stunned silence, confusion, and fear. The people of Rome had loved Caesar. He had given them land, grain, and spectacular games. His murder didn't restore the Republic. It ignited another, even more destructive civil war. In the power vacuum that followed, two key figures emerged: Caesar's loyal and ruthless right-hand man, Mark Antony, and Caesar's young, unknown, and brilliant grandnephew, an adopted heir, Octavian. They hunted down and defeated the conspirators, including Brutus and Cassius, who both ultimately took their own lives. The final irony is that the assassination, meant to prevent one man from ruling Rome, directly led to the rise of another. After years of political maneuvering and warfare, Octavian would consolidate power, defeat Antony and Cleopatra, and become Augustus, the very first Roman emperor, ending the Republic for good. So, the murder of Julius Caesar stands as a pivotal moment in history, a story of ambition, betrayal, and unintended consequences. An act designed to save the Republic ultimately ensured its demise. It's a powerful lesson in how even acts with noble intentions can lead to catastrophic outcomes. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's most dramatic events. What do you think? Were the conspirators patriots or just jealous murderers? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to explore more fascinating stories from the past, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hitting that notification bell ensures you won't miss our next historical adventure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.